You're listening to Podcast PXN, PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo. Let's do this. What's up, guys? Welcome to Podcast PXN, episode 30. I am one of your hosts, Daniel Prindle, aka Dan is DTM on Twitter, and I am joined by no one this week. That's right, Sean is not joining me this week, and moving forward, until this whole COVID-19 crisis kind of calms down, he will be on the sidelines up in Ohio. He'll be isolated there. Obviously, we didn't want to infect each other, or if one of us got it or whatever, don't want that to happen. So I'll be going solo, at least for this foreseeable future. So just wanted to make sure you guys were aware of that. Just as a reminder, I am live each and every Wednesday. You can catch me on YouTube, Podcast PXN, and you will find me on there. I'm going to have a great show this week, guys, because today we are going to talk about the explosion of Mario games that were kind of leaked, some re-releases that are coming up, as well as a new game as well. But first, the show always starts with the PXN news of the week, so let's go ahead and jump right in. First item on the PXN news of the week is Remedy has announced that they have signed a deal with Epic Games to publish their next two unannounced multi-platform games. So this is very exciting because Remedy, obviously, they just recently made Control last fall. Really good game, got Game of the Year for many people. It is a really, really good game, and I know some people weren't as high on the new DLC that came out, especially those that didn't want it to be an exclusive to one platform. Talking about myself. So this is very exciting news, though. Remedy, obviously, I love everything they've done. Alan Wake, Quantum Break, and Control as well. Everything they've made, I've always enjoyed, so I'm 100% on board for this. Epic Games has a ton of money, so they are definitely a good publisher for them to team up with. And it's interesting because Epic Games is now going into many more publishing scenarios where they're funding more games and becoming more of that publisher as well as developer, because obviously they are the developer of the well-regarded Fortnite. So that kind of blew up a couple years ago. So that's kind of exciting. They also, actually, Epic also announced that they were going to be the publisher for Playdead's next game, which Playdead, if you remember, they are the developer of Inside, which was the Xbox One exclusive for 1 month, and then it came to PS4. But is a really cool stylistic experience that people really enjoyed. And they also made Limbo on the Xbox 360 XBLA days, Xbox Live Arcade. That was also a really stylized experience, and it was really good as well. So very excited to see what Playdead does next. And I know everything they've shown thus far, I kind of coined this term of like outside. So their last game was Inside. They've showed some screenshots of this game. It could be called Outside because they've shown a lot of scenery pictures and screenshots and stuff like that. But obviously we'll be waiting to see what they announce moving forward for them. So our next item is BioShock Collection, Borderlands Collection, and XCOM 2 collections are all coming to the Nintendo Switch on May 29th. This is very good news. Nintendo had a little bit of a kind of a mini Nintendo Direct. They had some port announcements, and those were among them. This is good news for people who haven't played these games. I'm just not sure how many people haven't already played BioShock Collection, Borderlands Collection, or XCOM that haven't already wanted to play those experiences. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you want to play XCOM, most people are going to play that on PC because it's more like a strategy type experience. I know people play it on console, but it's kind of more known as like a PC experience, if that makes sense. The other thing is Borderlands and BioShock collections, those have been out for years. I mean, man, gosh, that was early this generation that both of those came out. So like 2014 time, something like that. So like 6 years, you think people haven't played that? I don't know. Will this actually help the Switch? I'm not sure about that either because, to be honest, Nintendo's in an interesting position because this fall, the Nintendo Switch becomes the least powerful console by an insane margin. And they were already the least powerful anyways, but they were at least close enough to Xbox One and PS4 to where developers could, port stuff to it after releasing it on those platforms. But I'm kind of concerned moving forward what happens after this fall. As we talked about on this podcast before, what are they going to do with third parties come this fall? Are third parties still going to want to make content for the Nintendo Switch being the least powerful console? I don't know if they will, to be honest. So that'll be interesting to keep our eye on there. The other thing we got from Nintendo was the next Smash Brothers DLC is confirmed that the fighter will be coming from ARMS. So this isn't... I know if Sean was here right now, he would be eye-rolling right now because I really don't think this is necessarily good move for them. Obviously, it's good that it's not another Fire Emblem character. We've had so many of those already in Smash. But ARMS, I don't know that ARMS really got the excitement that, Nintendo wanted people to have for it. I don't know. There's not really iconic characters that I would think of coming from ARMS. So I feel like it's kind of be like a Splatoon situation where they just kind of fill in like the generic ARMS character, which is that's kind of boring. Like people don't want to see Mii fighters and ARMS characters or whatnot. That's kind of bland. They want characters that are unique, that have unique abilities, like Solid Snake and Mario and Luigi and Bowser, and they all have different play styles. And Princess Peach. We just want more variety. And to be honest, the roster for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate is already insane. They already have so many characters in there, but to me, it's kind of a slap to the face to the players to give them something like this as opposed to giving them something crazier. Smash Brothers Ultimate was such a very ambitious goal for them to combine every character of every Smash game, and for them to just pull in a generic character from ARMS feels a little bit half-baked for me personally. So next up, we're going to talk about I keep saying we, like there's multiple people here. It's just me. I'm going to talk about the reviews for Life Alyx Doom Eternal and Resident Evil 3 remake reviews, which are starting to trickle in. That doesn't come out until Friday, I believe, but those are starting to trickle in as well. Life Alyx right now is sitting at a 93 on Metacritic, so I was already intrigued by this game before the reviews came out, just based on like how people were talking about it and saying like how excited they were to play it in the previews and everything. And these reviews kind of confirm that, saying that this is the experience that you need to play on VR if you have one. And the fact that people that are playing on PlayStation VR can't play this is super upsetting because I know PlayStation VR has a very big install base, and that would be such a good experience for them to get into. But I don't know if Valve will necessarily do that just because it drives people away from their platform. If they do, I don't see why it would hurt them to get more people playing their game. But Half-Life Alyx looks super, super cool. I've never been into Half-Life myself personally, but this game has me intrigued, especially with me owning a Quest now. I can plug in my Quests with the link, the Oculus Link cable, into my PC and play any like standard PC game, VR game as well. The only thing I struggle with, and I talked to one of my friends about this, Ian. The only thing I struggle with is that I don't know anything about the history of Half-Life. And even he said, like, yeah, you should probably go back and play the other Half-Life games before you go into playing this. So I'm kind of struggling with that, trying to decide if I want to, go back and play the older games before jumping into Alyx. But it's definitely doing very well. So that is definitely a welcome surprise for it to actually come through and for Valve to actually be back making great games. Doom Eternal, Great reviews for that as well. I've seen a lot of people say it's better than Doom 2016, which I agree with. It has a lot of depth in its combat. I love how it has different combat or ability trees. So, like, there's one ability tree that you can choose, like abilities that help you in your environment or with your suit or whatnot, and you spend points there. But then there's also upgrades for each individual weapon too. So you can add attachments to your main weapons that you can unlock as you progress through the game, and you get different abilities unlocked. And that, let me just tell you, that is definitely needed by the end of the game. The last mission was absolutely insane. Like, that mission was really, really hard, but it was a lot of fun. Without spoiling anything, it was a lot of fun. The second to last mission, ironically, I thought it was going to be the last mission of the game, and it was super easy. Like, the easiest boss fight by far in the entire game. Yeah, overall, Doom Eternal, fantastic. It's doing well in reviews, and also I've enjoyed playing it personally myself. I actually beat it as well over the weekend. I guess I won't talk about this in games we're playing since I'm kind of going into it now, but I'm very excited to play more from that universe if they continue making games. So that kind of does it for Doom Eternal. Resident Evil 3 Remake reviews. So this is interesting. So I know a few outlets for Resident Evil 3 Remake had rated it very highly. I know IGN, Game Informer, and some of the others had reviewed it very highly, and that got me very excited for it. Some outlets strangely had it very low rated, like 3 out of 5s, and I saw some like 70s and 60s, which I thought was odd until one of my friends told me, because I haven't played Resident Evil 3, the original. He said that it was very divisive in of itself, of its time, that the campaign's very short. It's like a 6-hour experience versus like a 10 to 12-hour experience that Resident Evil 2 Remake was. So while I can see people's complaints on there, I'm still all in. If this is just as good as Resident Evil 2 Remake, which every indication we've seen, it looks like it's just as good as Resident Evil 2 Remake. And the tension that mounts when you have Nemesis chasing after you. Again, I was going to talk about this in games we're playing, but I might as well talk about it now. Nemesis, when he chases you in the demo, I've played the demo, it's like a 20-minute demo. When he chases you, it's the most terrifying thing because he's faster than you, and you can't necessarily like just outrun him. You have to actually like use strategy and say, hey, if I go through these doors, make a couple turns, go around this way, then go through these doors, then come out, I might be safe. But even then, he still might jump over the building and be right in front of you. Like, it is very terrifying based on the demo that I played in. So far, the demo is absolutely everything I expected it to be, and very much in the same vein as Resident Evil 2 Remake. So I'm very excited to play that on Friday when it actually releases to everyone. So definitely keep your eye out for that. So moving on, there is another Splinter Cell mission that is coming to Ghost Recon. So if you remember, Ghost Recon Wildlands a couple years ago, 1 or 2 years ago, released a Sam Fisher mission that brought back Michael Ironside as Sam Fisher, and they had you go on a mission with Sam Fisher, Splinter Cell-esque mission, and that has now returned for Ghost Recon Breakpoint, as they have introduced their own Splinter Cell mission, including Sam Fisher, and this news just makes me pissed off. Ubisoft, give us a new Splinter Cell. I mean, come on. Everyone has been clamoring for a new Splinter Cell since 2013 when Splinter Cell Blacklist came out right before the new gen consoles came out. Everyone has been clamoring for one. Where is it, Ubisoft? Stop teasing us with this DLC, including Sam Fisher, and just make us a new Splinter Cell game. Please, for the love of God. We just want more Sam Fisher in an actual Splinter Cell game. So yeah, that was not exciting news for me personally, because I just want a new Splinter Cell. That's all. I've said it a million times. I just want it. Speaking of Doom Eternal from earlier, Doom Eternal has been announced to be the largest opening weekend of the entire franchise in terms of sales. So this is very, very, very good indicator for the future of the franchise, obviously. id Software continues to show that they are masters of their engine, the id Tech engine, and that game is as beautiful as ever. And I know I was one of the people that were concerned about id after John Carmack, who founded id Software, after he left, because John Carmack is a technical genius. Like, he is literally a technical genius. He left right after Doom 2016 shipped, I think. He left Bethesda, or rather id Software, and joined Facebook to work on Oculus, because Oculus was then purchased by Facebook. So that man is a technical genius. So I was just concerned about the technical prowess of Doom Eternal, just because his mind was no longer there. I was concerned, are they going to be able to hold up to their 2016 Doom standards? And they definitely did. They held up to those standards and then some. They delivered even more than what I expected them to deliver. So that was very exciting to see as well. So that's kind of it for Doom Eternal. But Bethesda, speaking of Bethesda, they announced today, actually, Pete Hines, the head of Bethesda Publishing, they announced that they are no longer having a press conference for E3 this year. So this sucks. As you all know, I've talked about this before, I love making my predictions for E3 every year. So I was still thinking in the back of my head, I was like, all right, so Ubisoft's already announced they're going to still have a presentation online, of course, with this COVID-19 deal going on. And Microsoft's already announced they're going to have an event, a digital event at some point. So I'm like, okay, I can still do predictions. They just won't necessarily be E3 predictions. But then now Bethesda, again, they're saying they're not having an event. They're just going to slowly trickle out their news over the next, few months or whatever, what have you. So that kind of sucks. I was really looking forward to still doing that, because I know there's a lot of studios that they have working on some exciting stuff. Bethesda Game Studios in particular, Todd Howard's team, they should be showing something from Starfield at least somewhat soon, because they didn't actually develop Fallout 76. That was developed by Bethesda Austin, I believe. It was a new division of Bethesda Game Studios. But yeah, man, it's just another victim to this awful virus situation we have going on right now. So that kind of sucks that we won't get a E3 conference, digital conference from Bethesda. Moving on, Sony has announced that they are slowing down their PS4 download speeds in the US in order to help alleviate the networks for the COVID-19 situation. Obviously, a lot of people are working from home right now. There's a lot of video conferencing going on, so it's stressing the internet infrastructure that is around the US. So Sony announced this. Interestingly enough, though, I've done a lot of research on this, and it's actually laughable how little video games actually contribute to internet bandwidth in the United States. Like, video games are a tiny amount of data compared to the Netflixes of the world, Amazon Instant Videos of the world, Vudu, all those streaming video services. Because you have to think, you're not streaming your game across the internet, you're just streaming your data. So, like, when you're playing an online game like Fortnite, you're just basically, your internet is for you to send out your position in the world, what you're doing in the world, and such stuff like that. You're not streaming in like graphics and sound and all this other stuff that goes along with video streaming like Netflix has. And the other thing is they have like 4K services, that's an insane amount of bandwidth that 4K takes up. So to me, it doesn't really make sense for Sony to have to do this, because it's only a very small margin compared to the overall internet infrastructure. And I get it. Every little bit counts. But to me personally, I would more gear my hand towards those streaming services and saying, hey, you guys need to lower your streaming quality to 720p or something like that. Do things to make them slow down their connection, because they are the ones that are hogging all of that bandwidth. Games aren't doing that. The only one you could argue that's doing that is Stadia, because Stadia is streaming all of that stuff over the internet, because you don't have a physical box that your games are playing on. You're playing from the cloud. So that's the only game service that you could actually claim is actually doing that. So I don't know. That just kind of miffed me a little bit, because I was like, really, Sony? That's not really going to do much. Like, that's literally a drop in the bucket compared to the, terabytes, petabytes of data that, streaming services have out there. So I just thought that was interesting. Moving on, both Sony and Microsoft have kind of on the record said that they're still anticipating their next-gen consoles, both Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5, to be on track for release this fall. This is good news for everyone in the industry. However, I hope this doesn't mean that we have a large shortage problem. I know we've talked about this a couple times already, but I really hope that doesn't contribute to a shortage. And again, as soon as you see those pre-orders go live, you better put your pre-order in, because we don't know. We don't know what those numbers are going to be. Yes, they're saying it's not delayed right now, but that doesn't mean that there's not going to be shortages, especially with the situation in China, what it was for so long. I know it's getting better now, but man, you have to think that had some kind of impact on their supply line. But they're claiming as of right now, they're both still on track to release this fall. So that's exciting, at least. In a story that's not really that surprising, GameStop has announced that they are closing 320 stores in 2020. Not surprising at all. This isn't related to COVID-19 whatsoever, even though some GameStops around the United States were trying to claim themselves as essential services, and they were trying to remain open there for a little bit. Now they've since closed, but they were trying to stay open under that, and people, you can't do that. You're not an essential service, GameStop. There's online stores that people can play video games and download video games from. So for them to say that, it's kind of silly, but this isn't related to that. This is just them saying they're projecting to close 320 stores because of their declining sales. I think it's an inevitability that GameStop will be gone. It's just a matter of when, not if. I think they will be there long enough to make it through the launch of this generation of consoles that's coming up, but I don't see them lasting very long, to be honest. I see them lasting maybe like a year after the next-gen consoles come out. I really think that GameStop is going to be bankrupt by fall 2021, because they're just in such a bad spot financially, and with the way that the games landscape is going, everything's going all digital, so people aren't really clamoring to go out and wait in line at GameStop to get the next release. They're just waiting online. So I definitely, fall 2021 is the latest that I think GameStop will remain in business. I do not think they will be around for much longer. So moving on, Modern Warfare 2 Remastered, campaign only, not multiplayer, has been announced and released on PS4 only. This pisses me off. So there was some leaks last week about this, and I got really excited about it because Modern Warfare 2 has one of my favorite campaigns in the entire Call of Duty franchise. So I was excited to play this, and then the announcement came on Tuesday from Call of Duty's Twitter account that said basically that this is a PS4 exclusive for a month that everyone else can play April 30th. And it just rubs me the wrong way. I do not like stuff like this. Activision is known for doing stupid stuff like this because they love money. Sony obviously is going to throw whatever money they can at them to get whatever exclusives they can, just like Microsoft would do the same thing if they're in the position to do that. But gosh, it's just such a terrible business practice. There's so many better ways you can do exclusivity, like some skins or something like that. That would be fine. But in an entire campaign, an entire game is exclusive for a month. That is a very bad taste in my mouth. I cannot stand awful consumer decisions like this. It baffles me how Activision continues to make terrible decisions like this, in my opinion. Obviously, this isn't going to affect you if you're on PS4, but if you're on PC or Xbox, you got to wait another month. So it's kind of upsetting. So moving on, Xbox Series X controllers are revealed to be using batteries or rechargeable battery packs. So exactly the same way as the Xbox One controllers are now. You can use batteries, regular AA batteries, or rechargeable AA batteries, or you can use the official rechargeable battery packs, which is what I personally use. So I've seen a lot of people arguing back and forth about this online. Like, some people think that internal battery is better, where you can't change it and you just charge it with your cable or whatever. And some people like the batteries. Well, in my opinion, this is the best situation because you give yourself the flexibility to use batteries if you need to, but you also give yourself the ability to use the rechargeable battery pack, which is the exact same rechargeable battery pack that's in the PlayStation controllers that are built into the controller. It's just they're removable. So in my opinion, that's a big deal because if you have controllers lasting 2, 3, 4 years, if you have them lasting that long, you can't replace that battery in an internal battery. So your battery life, as you may or may not know, degrades over time. You see it in your cell phone. You see it in all kinds of devices. Your batteries only last so long. Like, batteries degrade. So for me personally, I would rather have the option to pull that battery out and replace it with a different rechargeable battery, so that I have a perfect battery life controller again. I don't want to get a battery, because I'll give you an example. My original launch PS4 controller, it literally gets like 30 minutes to an hour of gameplay before I have to charge it again. And that's at full charge because that battery is so worn out. It's been, 7 years since launch. It's so worn out at this point that it no longer holds a complete charge because that's what happens with batteries. And, I can't replace that battery because it's an internal battery. There's nowhere for me to replace it. So it's kind of upsetting because that controller is in perfect condition because I don't really play my PS4 as much as I play my Xbox. And so that controller is still in fantastic condition, but I can't really use it because it's not feasible. I don't want to have to plug in my controller after 30 minutes to an hour of playing. So for me personally, this just makes the most sense for everyone because you have the option to do either way. I don't understand the hatred towards it because from the people that are the internal camp, because you can still use a rechargeable battery pack. That's no different. It's literally no different. You plug your controller in using the charging cable. It's no different. It's not internal. So for me personally, I think that's the best decision. So enough about controllers and batteries. So moving on to the final news story of the week before I go into the games we're playing, which I've already kind of divulged a couple of those. So my final news story is Randy Pitchford is still a giant douchebag. Yes, that is my story. So today there was a news story that came out broken by Jason Schreier from Kotaku, of course. He breaks tons of video game news. From his sources, despite huge sales, Borderlands 3 developers are getting stiffed on Borderlands 3 profits and bonuses. So apparently, this is just an awful situation because Randy Pitchford took a $12 million bonus from the company when Borderlands 3 started development in 2016. Think about that. $12 million he just took. Like, nobody, God, nobody appreciates the people that actually makes the games. And for me, Randy Pitchford is one of the biggest hypocrites in the entire industry. He talks about how he loves his studio, but then he does stuff like this. It's absolutely unacceptable, and Randy Pitchford, you need to pay your employees what you promised. According to this report, there are numerous people coming forward from Gearbox saying they were promised $50,000 to $100,000 worth of bonuses from Borderlands 3 sales. And let's just preface this with this. Borderlands 3 is the highest selling Borderlands game in the entire franchise by far. So this game did very, very well, yet they aren't getting the bonuses that they deserve because apparently management mismanaged the game and, have more resources tied up into it. He claimed more employees and more overhead and all of this. Well, in my opinion, mismanagement doesn't, absolve you of having to pay your dues to your employees. You promised $100,000 to all of your employees and bonuses. You should pay those people. It's completely unacceptable for you to say you're going to do something and not do it. So to me, this is just another chapter in the epic saga of how much of a douchebag Randy Pitchford is. And no, I'm not afraid to say that. I hope he watches this. I did send this link to him when I was talking to him on Twitter about something else that I thought was annoying, and he responded. So I sent him my podcast. I was like, you should check out my podcast, Randy. I hope he does because, man, I literally can't stand the man. He does more shady stuff than anyone in the entire industry, and quite frankly, I'm tired of it. So I call him out every single time, and I will continue to do that. So moving on to the games we are playing, or I am playing, Doom Eternal. I already talked about in the news story, so I'm not going to rehash myself there. Love the game. Resident Evil 3 remake demo, again, I talked about in the news. I'm not going to rehash myself again there. Absolutely loved it. Super terrifying. So the last thing I wanted to talk about in games we're playing, the Resident Evil Resistance beta, which is that's the game that's packaged in with Resident Evil 3 remake. So this is the beta that's going on right now, and it's a multiplayer experience that's going to be tied into it. So this multiplayer experience is interesting. It definitely takes some inspiration from stuff like Left 4 Dead and, survival experiences such as that, and kind of 4v1 experiences like Evolve and stuff like that. But I think it does suffer a little bit. I think it suffers a little bit in terms of survivors. So when you play as the survivors, it isn't as fun as playing as the overseer or whatever you call it. It's not overseer. What's the name? I don't know. The overarching character. So the overarching character gets to place zombies and traps and turrets and all kinds of stuff to help stop the survivors from getting to the end of the level. It's super interesting because you switch between the cameras to kind of get different viewpoints in the level so that you can position yourself in order to place down zombies or place down turrets or place down traps or dogs or what have you in order to stop those survivors. So this is super cool because it kind of takes some strategy to kind of place these things in order to succeed. It's a ton of fun. I really enjoyed playing as the one person that's overseeing the whole level. Playing as the survivors, though, it does need some work. Just because when you're running around as the survivors, you need a lot of teamwork, and when people in the game aren't on the same page, which I experienced many times, it was very difficult to get to the end of the level. I know we struggled mightily many times because we just had no communication. There was no communication whatsoever in the entire game. So that was kind of frustrating to have that. But man, I just want to have a solid experience. That's all I'm asking for from that. A solid experience. And to be honest, if they can just tweak some things with that, I don't think they're going to be able to do it by Friday because they just released it this past Friday, the demo. So I don't think they'll be able to do it by then, but If they could just tweak a few things and maybe just have that feel a little better, that might improve the value for buying Resident Evil 3 Remake, because I know people were upset about it only being 6-hour campaigns, so maybe this will help with that. I don't know. Just an idea there. But moving on to the final news story, not final news story, to the topic of the show. Not the I'm on the news still. To the topic of the show. So, topic of the show is Nintendo is planning Super Mario re-releases and remasters to celebrate Super Mario Bros. 35th anniversary. So this is very, very excited. So according to multiple sources, Nintendo is planning to hold an event to coincide with this year's anniversary, which marks the 35th year since the start of the mainline Super Mario series. So this is awesome. What they're talking about here is essentially every 3D Mario game that has come out since then is all going to be packaged in one package and remastered and re-released. This is exciting. This is pure rumor right now, so don't hold me to this, but the rumor is that there's going to be remasters of Super Mario 64, Super Mario Sunshine, and Super Mario Galaxy, all packaged in one package, all remastered for Switch. This would be freaking awesome. So I would be super down for this because I never played Sunshine and I never played Galaxy. Honestly, Galaxy's the one I really want to play because that I know is really well regarded and is like one of the highest rated Mario games of all time. So I'm really excited if that actually comes to fruition to check that out. And also, obviously, to revisit Super Mario 64, that would be amazing as well. And even to check out Sunshine, depending on the remaster, I really hope that the remaster isn't just like them up-resing it or whatever. I hope they really touch every aspect of the game, kind of like a Resident Evil 2 remake, Resident Evil 3 remake style, where you're just retouching the entire game and rebuilding it from scratch. I would absolutely love that. Or build the games in the Mario Odyssey engine. That would be amazing. Because that game is absolutely gorgeous on Switch, so I would love that as well. Apparently, there's a lot of 2D Mario games that will be getting released on the Nintendo Online service as well for Switch. So we'll be getting a ton of those as well. So that's all exciting. The rumor is that they plan to have every single Mario game of the 35-year history included on Switch in some capacity, whether it's this remaster collection or a port or available in Nintendo Switch Online, etc. So, and the other one they mentioned was Mario 3D World that came out on Wii U, having that a deluxe version of that re-released on Switch as well as like a port, essentially similar to what they did for Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze, as well as some other Wii U games they ported over, like Mario Kart 8 as well. So that's very exciting as well. But the last thing that they also kind of leaked out was they're building a brand new installment in the Paper Mario series as well for 2020. So I never played the original Paper Mario, but I know a lot of people really like that game. So that's very exciting as well. The more, the merrier, to be honest with you. I love the variety that Nintendo comes up with Mario, and I feel like every iteration of Mario is always different. You know, some of the Legend of Zelda stuff can sometimes, like mix together or bleed together, so to speak, where there's so similar experiences that you don't really see any big differences. But with Mario, I feel like every iteration of Mario, there's always something big that changes. So like Odyssey had the big feature where you could throw your hat on everything, and that changed your gameplay substantially. Mario 64 was a huge revolution because it was the first 3D Mario game. It was such a big revolution at the time. So that was exciting. Mario Galaxy, you had all these galaxies to explore, so that was exciting. So I feel like they do such a good job with that I'm really, really excited to see what they can do with Mario, a sequel to Mario, Paper Mario, rather, in 2020, as well as all these other remasters and kind of a conglomeration of every Mario that's ever released. So very excited for all of those. Thank you guys for coming out live. I appreciate it. I know this has been a bit of a wreck of a show because I'm by myself, but I'm going to do my best to do these by myself each week until this whole crisis calms down. But yeah, appreciate you guys checking it out. Remember, you can join us every Wednesday live on YouTube. Just search Podcast PXN. Thank you guys for joining me again, and much love, and keep on gaming.